The Idaho 4 murders have captivated us, have haunted us for over a month, but today there was a break in the case. 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger was arrested in Pennsylvania. He is held without bail for extradition on charges of first-degree murder. Now, according to reports, Bryan was a PhD student in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology at Washington State University. Washington State University is just a quick drive across state line to the University of Idaho. This was a case that brought out a lot of online sleuths, but one that got the most attention was Ashley Guillard. Ashley is a self-professed clairvoyant tarot card reader who began accusing Professor Rebecca Scofield of the murders. Weeks and weeks of video were posted online. Rebecca's attorneys sent 2 cease and desist, which Ashley ignored. Finally, Rebecca's attorneys filed a formal lawsuit against Ashley. I did an IG Live with defamation attorney Kate Watson-Moss, the same attorney that helped us in the Depp v. Heard case, to answer some questions about this Scofield versus Guillard defamation case. Kate, hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Oh my gosh, it feels like old times. I mean, we actually did this in 2022. It feels like the Depp Heard trial was like ages ago, but also like, but we were doing this in 2022. And we did have a couple more cases we talked about on YouTube, which if you're not following YouTube, make sure you do that. It's pinned on my profile. We talked about the Brad and Angelina case. We're probably going to talk in 2023 about a bunch of other cases, but this case is wild. I mean, if you aren't aware of the, I believe it's pronounced Moscow, Idaho murders, 4 university students were brutally murdered in November. And, there was really, it was this weird thing of there were no leads, but there were also thousands and thousands of tips, because we've reached this point in social media where true crime, we know it's selling. Right? These 3, I've talked about 3-part docuseries are everywhere. And, it's sad, but like in order to get any sort of clout and clicks, if you can latch on to true crime in any way, it gets hits because that's what people are really interested in. And this case had so many tips that it seemed to almost be hindering the investigation, is what we were hearing from police. Like, just unless you have something credible, please just stay out of the way, is kind of what we were getting. And then along comes this TikToker, Ashley Guillard, who apparently she has been, quote, solving crimes for a while. I mean, that's what's in her bio, right? She has that she is a clairvoyant and that she uses her skills. When I searched her name, she had written, and anyone can kind of publish a book. She had written 2 books, one about the Tamla Horsford murder, which, that's another case that we should absolutely get into one day because it's terrible. And also the one about Kevin Samuels, which wasn't a mystery murder. I mean, he died, I believe, of a heart attack. But she'd written these 2 books, and, she said she uses these skills. And somehow, again, people keep asking me, like, how is she attached to the Idaho 4 murders? And I keep saying, I don't see an attachment. I see her as someone who did a tarot reading and somehow decided that this Professor Rebecca Scofield was involved in the murders. And the way she kept talking about it online was that she kept saying, Rebecca, I don't believe Rebecca committed the murders. I believe that she orchestrated them by convincing this other guy, I think it was Jack was his name, to do the murders. Again, Rebecca, so obviously what happened was this was growing. There was millions, the police even said, we have gotten lots of tips, but this particular TikToker, it's kind of blowing up. So they had to address it. So they addressed it this week where they said Rebecca Scofield is not a suspect. And so they had to lay that out. Rebecca Scofield hired attorneys. They sent 2 cease and desist. And the funny part was, the initial cease and desist, I believe, was sent through email. And Then the second one, she said she posted on her TikTok account, and the attorneys were then able to say, because she posted it on her TikTok account, we can now confirm that she has received it, because
Correct.
that's the thing with you cease and desist. We need confirmation you get it.
Well, in Idaho, too, it's actually really important because some states, including Idaho, whereby if you cease and desist and say, hey, whatever you posted is false, take it down, and they do not do so within 20 days, on day 21, you as a plaintiff become eligible for punitive damages, which are like the big money damages. You can't get them, I mean, you can't get them in some other instances, but that's kind of like the condition precedent to doing that. So if you actually look at the cease and desist letters, the first C&D is dated November 29th. The case was filed on December 21st, which is exactly 22 days from the day the first cease and desist letter was dated. If you give it like a day for her to get it and receive it, they did exactly what they needed to do. On day 21, they filed suit because that's, you know, that's how you get those big damages.
Okay, wow. Okay. You broke up a little bit. So wait, what's with the 21 days in Idaho?
Sorry about that. Yeah, in Idaho, in order to get punitive damages, if you send a letter to the person who you say defamed you, saying, hey, you said something wrong, take it down, and they don't within 20 days, at day 21, you as the plaintiff become eligible for punitive or exemplary damages.
Got it.
So that's, I think, a big sort of underlying thing here. Now, the question of whether Rebecca Scofield can actually get those damages if this TikToker is actually making any money, and I guess that's one big question I have here is the phenomenon of people claiming to be psychics or clairvoyants and pretending they have, or saying they have insight into a murder or solving crimes that they don't. That's not a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
That's been around forever. What's different here is the method of publication. She's publishing this it's getting millions of views.
Yes.
And some people seem to be buying it. Do you think people believe it? Do you think people think it's real?
Well, that's the thing, because yes, I mean, you know, again, here's the thing about TikTok. We know that like TikTok, you know, ranges in age from 12-year-olds to 102-year-olds. And so the people that are responding, I don't know how old they are, but I do know that there are people in the comments who absolutely believe her. And that's the thing that's, you know, interesting, because one of the things she said in her videos, because she's, you know, she was banned from posting for a few days because I believe enough people were reporting her videos. She was able to start posting today. So I started looking at her videos today, and she was trying to she was definitely not stepping it back up very much, but she was saying something along the lines of, this is no different than someone calling in a tip line. You wouldn't expect someone on a tip line to have all the evidence. And she was also kind of, because she had said she had evidence and now she was saying she didn't have evidence. She was like, I'm just a clairvoyant. I'm here to lead the police so they find evidence. And I was like, no, it's not like a tip line. A tip line is anonymous. Nobody hears what people are putting in a tip line. You are putting your accusation out to millions of people. There's a big difference.
Totally. Not only that, I think your observation that she's kind of changed her tune on this evidence is really interesting, because I noticed that same thing from today. But then if you go back to, she had a post on the 25th where she said, I have physical evidence against Rebecca Scofield that validates everything I have said about her. Well, that to me is, you can't really say that what you're saying is opinion at that point. And you're really saying, I have hidden evidence. That's like exactly how courts look at whether something is a fact or not. On top of that, she also said that she has this evidence, but she can't share it because now she has to wait for court. Meanwhile, I looked at the docket today. She hasn't been served. If you look at her recent posts, it looks like she's maybe trying to dodge service a little bit.
Wow.
So if she's really, truly, she said literally, hopefully court doesn't take too long. Well, maybe if you want to speed it up, you should probably accept service and stop, messing around here. That to me is an indication too of like, this is a dumb game. You're going to get served eventually. Also, I think she showed like a picture of her putting the complaint in the toilet paper roll or something. As an attorney, if I can't get someone to accept service, there's a thing called constructive notice where you can basically say they have notice of this lawsuit, and that's really all you need to get a lawsuit going. She posted a video about it. She's talked about it. She's acknowledged it. Like,
she knows.
They'll say that she was served eventually. You can't dodge service forever. It just doesn't work.
And like, that was the thing one of the questions you had, because obviously as a defamation attorney, this is like your biggest thing, because the difference, well, the main difference here is like Rebecca Scofield is a private figure. So you said, malice doesn't have to be proven because unlike a famous person, there's, I guess with a public figure, there's just this expectation of certain things. So because she's private, you're saying malice doesn't have to be proven.
Right. And there are some cases where courts have deemed professors to be public figures, but that's only in circumstances where the statements are about some kind of public controversy that the professor has injected themselves into. This is definitely not that. This is very far from that. So I think there's no question that a court would think of her as a private citizen. And all that Rebecca Scofield needs to prove is that she was negligent and she failed to exercise due care, which means that she wasn't thinking with regard for the truth or what like the negative impact of saying something false, accusing someone of a murder, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
To millions of people, what those impacts are. That's all she really needs to prove.
Now, another thing that obviously so many people are bringing up are, when we look at these videos, there are indications that Ashley Guillard may have mental illness. And I don't ever speculate because one, I don't like to just group people that are making really bad decisions into mental illness because that's not fair. They need to be held accountable if they're making bad decisions. What I do know about Ashley Guillard is she has gone to university. She has published 2 books. She has a child. All of those things she could also have mental illness. But for me, I'm like, to me, I don't have any proof of that. And so I don't want to just push it away. Now, another thing that came up though, because obviously people talk in the comment section is, girl, you need to plead insanity. And maybe that's why you keep posting is because you want to prove that you're insane. But people were saying in Idaho, insanity defense isn't really a defense. Now that's when it comes to criminal charges. She hasn't been criminally charged. This is still civil. It's a defamation case. But you had sort of said like there is this weird thing in Idaho with mental illness and defenses.
So this is all strictly in the sort of the criminal law context. And the idea around criminal law is that criminal law is there to sort of protect society and to make sure that people get either pulled out of society so they're not able to commit other crimes or they're able to rehabilitate themselves. And so the idea that someone is not mentally sound and didn't commit a crime with the requisite intent, the mental sort of state of mind, that is something that is codified in a lot of states as a defense. But in Idaho and some other states in the West, they don't have that defense. Instead, what happens is basically the prosecutor argues that all of the state of mind is there, and the defendant has to say, actually, the mens rea, they couldn't make the right mental leap. They were mentally ill, so they weren't capable of usually having premeditation, have a deliberate intent for the crime. Now, civil cases, like defamation cases, the point is not to get people out of society or seek justice or retribution. The point is someone has been damaged, someone has suffered some kind of damage to their reputation, to anything, and they need to be compensated for that. Who should compensate for it? And in defamation, the idea is that someone's reputation has been harmed. And so while money damages are obviously a part of the equation, truly the courts are really concerned with making sure someone has a forum to make sure that the truth about them is out there so they can refute anything false that's out there. Because sometimes, especially if you're a private citizen, you don't have the forum to do that outside of a court. And so here, I think the courts don't really care as much about state of mind because that has nothing to do with whether or not the person who was harmed is made whole. So there's some cases, I think the most sort of the interesting argument that will probably be presented here, although my understanding is that she plans on representing herself. So I can't imagine that any of these arguments are going to get very far. But if she had a lawyer with expertise in defamation, I think they would be saying either this is clearly opinion, this is her opinion, she hasn't, she stated enough. She stated the fact that she got this from reading 2 tarot cards and running a Google search. anyone who reads that it's not reasonable to think that that's fact or that that's, verifiable, or that everyone knows that what she's saying is based on tarot reading and therefore no one would ever take it seriously. She can't have any damages because her reputation wasn't damaged. And that might be especially true now that there's been a lot of press coverage of this and people are clearly saying that this woman has no clue what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Because, okay, so today we've had the arrest of a suspect. We don't know where that will go, but there's an arrest of a suspect. We have a name, Bryan Kohberger, 28-year-old. He was arrested in Pennsylvania. He's going to, I think they filed for extradition back to Idaho, charged with first degree. So it sounds like they have built a strong case against this guy. And so now at this point, it seems like she would start deleting videos. But even if she were to start deleting videos, it's too late, right? Or what happens?
Yeah. You can't unring a bell, right?
Yeah.
So now that it's out there, it's out there. And so I think there's sort of it really depends what the plaintiff in this case wants, right? Maybe she wants everything to be taken down and that's enough. She realizes this person is not well.
And maybe a public apology and acknowledgement. Yeah.
Exactly. Although, given having looked at this woman's TikTok this morning, she just is unrelenting about posting. I don't think that's likely to happen.
Yeah.
What I do think is, and she keeps adding more fuel to the fire. She keeps saying more. So I think what's more likely to happen is that the plaintiff here, Rebecca Scofield, will, through her attorneys, probably seek what's called a temporary restraining order, which is basically an immediate order from the court saying, hey, she keeps doing this. This is ongoing. It presents an ongoing threat and danger to me and my family, to address it quickly. And that is probably, the court there has some more hooks to try and get her to stop posting.
And then if she let's say they get a restraining order, if she violates, she can go to jail for that, right?
Yeah, if you are in contempt of an order issued by a court of law, you can go to jail for that, or you can have fines. There's a lot of different ways they can try to enforce that, but it would not be a good thing for her. It would not be good.
I'm also just surprised. Because we've talked about this too, with just you would think that TikTok would intervene also, because they can't be held responsible. And I think that's related to the Section 15, because they are just a platform, right? But these are the sorts of things where you start being like, whoa, it gets scary. Now, on the other hand, you have, I can't remember right now, the podcaster that dug into the kidnapping and murder that was just on trial, and he ended up being called as a witness, really famous woman who was murdered. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. But you have, independent journalists like that, right, who can really dig into a case. And those sorts of things are needed because they just look for things that maybe the police aren't looking for. But then you have the polar opposite in this case, where somebody just starts pulling names out of a hat, and it's terrifying because that could be any of us.
Totally. And I think it's also really, when you're used to either crimes are typically handled by law enforcement and they're covered by the press, this sort of new wing of independent investigators and independent journalists don't know the same ground rules, which have been in place for years to try and protect some of these people. And it's not just about protecting the victims and their families. It's also about protecting people from false accusations. Being falsely identified as someone who's committed a crime can have very long-term damages, especially with the internet. And trying to clean up your reputation online is incredibly expensive and incredibly time-consuming. So it's really important that people be very careful and very sure about what they're saying. And sometimes I've found that some of these sort of freelance investigators and freelance journalists are a little bit, played a little fast and loose with some of those acceptable standards.
Now, if, let's say that there is, because I don't know, I'm not in the professor's head, but I would think that ultimately she does just want this sort of cleaned up. Because you're right, there's people who still to this day believe things that have been disproven long ago just because they heard it once, they never looked into it again. So there will be people for the rest of their life who will believe Rebecca Scofield had anything to do with this. But I'm sure she just wants to have her name cleared. But let's say she does get, and this will be down the road, an actual judgment. And let's say this TikToker has no money because we don't know what she does. We don't even know what her net worth is. But that judgment gets attached to her for the rest of her life. Pretty much this woman could just for the rest of her life, she'll get a check that's what happens, I think, ultimately. Can these sorts of things be written off in bankruptcy?
The judgment, a tort judgment, cannot be written off in bankruptcy. It will
Okay.
attach to her for the rest of her life. If she ever is eligible for a tax refund, she will be able to garnish that tax refund. They can put liens on her bank accounts. I mean, they can just follow it up like that over and over again. And it can really be a stone around someone's neck. That's sort of what's happening with Alex Jones right now, right? With
Yes.
his bankruptcy. He's in a similar situation. But I think the question will be whether what ends up happening with this case, and whether they're able to pursue it, or if it just kind of ends in default judgment and things get taken down.
Right?
Someone intervenes.
She just doesn't show up. I mean, she might just never try to get served. She might just ignore it, and then, I mean, it would just be a default, right?
Yeah, then I think they would have to probably pursue some kind of alternative, going after trying to get her account taken down from TikTok, trying to figure out some other way to get at her assets, or get the results that the professor is looking for here.
Now, one of the questions that had come up, people were asking you, like, has this clairvoyant ever solved a case ever? Now, I have not. I've Googled. I've never seen her attached to any case. In the comment section, people asked her, can you give us other cases that you've solved? She ignored the question, wouldn't answer it. I doubt she has solved any cases, because I have not seen her attached to anything. And again, people were asking, how did she decide on this, professor? She read her tarots. We don't have any other link to why she said this name.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. So this is sort of the hypothetical I would pose to you, Kiki. So like, say I just decide to take a whole bunch of ayahuasca or something, and as I'm like tripping, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know, it came to me. I know for a fact that someone did something, and that it was a total crime, and I can tell from my inner being that this is true. It is the truth. You would then be like, okay, cool, you're tripping. You have no clue what you're talking about. You would never think that was actually the truth, right?
Well, okay. You know what? I will say this. One time in high school, I got super stoned and found out later it was laced. And one of my good friends, she's Native American, and she had lived on a reservation all the way until she was like 14. And we're stoned together, and we were as beach week. Anyways, we were making bad decisions as teenagers, and we were with these guys we didn't know. And all of a sudden she grabs me and she runs out. And anyway, she told me she had a vision. Anyways, that was when I was 14, and I believed her, and we ran down the boardwalk and got away. As an adult, I know that, drugs are hell of a drugs. But no, it's like, I wouldn't, I do believe that there are people that can speak to spirits, and I believe in all of that. I don't think that it can be the end all as like a basis in any case. Do I believe there's psychics who have helped police before? I do believe that, but I just don't think that we don't find out about it till later. Because again, if a psychic has a vision and she goes to a police and has a vision, and the police decide to follow up on it and find physical and, actual evidence, then okay. But like, to just say it, just because I have dreams all the time of crazy things.
Well, I think that's also part of where her continuing to post and say things really kind of sealed the deal here, because at the beginning she said, I determined that this woman was behind these murders because of tarot, and that's how I know this, and I've got these gifts and whatever. That to me is like, I don't know that people would reasonably believe that. But then later on, when she makes that post saying, I have physical evidence that this woman did this, and I'm so excited that I was sued, and I can't wait to bring this up in court. Well, now she's gone past, this is my opinion. She's saying, I had this gut feeling, I used my clairvoyant gift to figure this out, and then I found the evidence. Well, now you've taken it a step further, and that's, I think, where, and I think also, as you mentioned, you look at the TikTok comments and people reacting to it, people believe her. People think it's legit. And that to me is enough to get over sort of the issues with opinion testimony and whether or not a reasonable fact finder would find that what she's saying is fact or opinion. I think that crosses over to fact at that point. So
basically the next steps in this case, right, will anything extra happen now? Again, now that the suspect has been arrested, will Rebecca's attorneys, is there something extra that they do now, or do they just stay the course and like try to get, Ashley served, and then just, try to get these? I mean, obviously I'll be watching Ashley's account all weekend to see if she starts like taking it down, because she also had a Twitch account because she had blamed someone else, and then she backtracked on that and then took all those videos down. So I'm interested to see if she, she would do that.
Yeah, so I think, so if you actually, in the complaint, it's kind of interesting. When they were talking about all of the different statements that were false, they included a footnote to her actual account saying, we're including a footnote to her live account because she keeps posting and we think there's going to be ongoing defamation, and every ongoing post is included in our complaint. So we're going to say all of them are actionable. So that sort of ongoing aspect of this means that everything that she's posting can still form the basis of a defamation claim. And I think what they're going to have to do is continually monitor and update, the case based on these new statements. I think, one, getting her served is going to be a challenge because it looks like, from what I've seen, that she might be dodging service. Also, this case was filed on the 21st, and typically if you're serving an individual, it doesn't take that long. It's already the 30th, and from what I saw on the docket this morning, she still hadn't been served. So I have a feeling they're going to maybe have some problems with that, but they'll figure that out eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But I think eventually what they will probably do is seek a restraining order to try and get her to stop posting. I think also, I'm sure behind the scenes, they are also working to get in touch with TikTok to try and get her account suspended.
Yeah.
Which is clearly what's happened to people like Alex Jones. They've been deplatformed from a lot of mainstream platforms because at a certain point, the platform knows that they're posting things that are false and problematic, and they have to acknowledge it and take action, or else they can potentially lose some protection.
Could the attorneys, could they use TikTok to their advantage? Because there are plenty of people in the comments, even more so, that, that are like, you're out of your mind, you need to be off. Could the attorneys be like, we need to get this woman served. If you know this woman, can you help us? I don't know. Can you do that as an attorney?
Yeah, so there are actually some cases where plaintiffs have been able to serve defendants who are either unknown or who are dodging service by posting it's called a public notice of a lawsuit, and also shooting them an email or contacting them via these no social media accounts. It's very new and obviously tailored to the time.
Yeah.
But that is one way that people are getting served. Eventually they'll be able to serve her. But I do think where the TikTok comments are really important are two places. One, they're cited in the complaint as people were saying, hey, this is wrong. You don't have any evidence of this. Knock it off. You're going to get sued for defamation. That is notice that she should have been, not posting this stuff. The second thing that's going to be up there are people's reactions. The fact that people are believing her, the fact that people do take her seriously, that can all also be used in court to try and help prove her claims. And I think between that, and I also noticed that on her TikTok, she's got a link to a website where she seems to be selling readings.
Yeah.
She's also posting in between these posts things like reach out to me by email for pricing on a reading. That to me shows that there's a motive here. She's doing this because it's getting her attention, and she can get people to think that she's got some kind of insider knowledge, and then they're going to pay her a lot of money to do readings.
Yeah.
So
Just curious, because what if an attorney was scrolling and they saw someone like me who reports on this? Could I ever be considered an accessory witness of did you believe these things, or when you saw them, or what did you see? Because I know that she's deleting videos, and obviously TikTok has a history of it, so they can pull it if they ever need it. But would they ever pull someone that's oh, I see that you were reporting on this? I don't know. I'm just wondering for my own self.
Well, I think anyone could be, if anyone who leaves a public comment, you should always think that's going to be public. It could be put anywhere, right? Unless it's, on a private video and you have a private account, there's some ways to sort of limit that, but it definitely could be out there. I do think what is interesting, though, is you as someone who has deep insight and knowledge on social media and what it means to post on social media and how people interpret social media. That's almost like an expert witness function, where, you know, if someone said, you know, if she was trying to argue that no one would take this seriously, they could call in someone like you with relevant expertise who's been doing this for years and say, hey, actually, no, people really do believe this. And, you know, that could be a nice little side hustle for you, Kiki. Make some extra money. It's an expert witness.
Well, okay. Well, I love this. I mean, I love this information, and I kind of am so interested to see what is going to happen again now that a suspect has been arrested. And we saw that Ashley was still posting as today. I mean, she was even today, she was posting video claims about her baby daddy being involved and being the person that gave the address. So like, I'm like, I feel like you're just digging yourself a deeper hole. So we'll see what happens with this. I will, for subscribers, I will be saving this to IG. For non-subscribers, I will be uploading this to YouTube so we can watch this there. But thank you, Kate, for joining, and we will obviously have more cases in the new year. But until I see you again, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And thanks for joining. Happy Friday, y'all. Bye.
Bye.